Hi guys. Okay, we're going to take, this is a video or an explanation about the next phase of writing. Now, unfortunately, some of us haven't done a very good job of this spread, shifts, overlap, and centers of the box plots. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but we'll talk about that in class. But the next phase of things takes you to some of the merit level things that you're going to have to talk about. Now, when you see these graphs collectively together on Insight, you should see immediately that the thing that should stick out to you is that there is a huge overlap of these box plots, the middle 50% of the data. And what that we have learned from years previous is that tells us is that no median is outside the box of the other. And statistically, that suggests to us in year 11 and 12 that there is no statistical difference between the incomes of male and females. That's what should jump out at you right away. Now, you justify that when you talk about the shifts and the spread and the overlap and the centers. And yes, there is a difference between the centers. If you look at the statistics, the means and the medians are a little bit different between the two groups. But the thing that jumps out at you and should jump out at you immediately is when you look at this overall visual picture, that there isn't much difference. We expected there to be a difference, but there doesn't seem to be a difference. And this is where you go on to the spread with the middle 50%, the IQR. You calculate that and you see that, yes, there is a difference, but it's not significant. There isn't that much difference. And you confirm that visually by looking at the graphs. And you talk about shifts. Well, one really isn't shifted any further than the other, and that there's so much overlap of these that there really isn't seem to be any statistical difference between these graphs. Now, the other thing that you need to look at is the conversation around whether you use mean or median. This is merit. You have to talk about this, and we've talked about this in class. What would you use here as a measure of center in a comparison between the male and female incomes? Well, you would use median, not mean. And why? Because there are outliers. You've told me there are outliers in the data. If there are outliers in the data, you shouldn't use mean because mean is affected by outliers. So we'll use median as a conversation around the comparison. 35,000, 39,000. And yes, again, males are a little bit higher than females. But is it statistically different? And the fact of the matter is, it's not statistically different. All right, if we go back to the graphs, for things to be statistically different initially, we have to look at the medians being outside the box of the other, and that's not happening. And that's what you would say in year 11 and 12, and that would be completely fine. In year 13, we need to say more than that. All right? So we need to first have a conversation around what measure of center we're going to use, median, and then we have to have a conversation around what we seem to be happening in the population. So the reason that we have these samples and that we've taken these samples is to relate it back to the population. That's the key to this whole thing. And at this point in time, and what we've done in the graphs that we've looked at, what we're seeing is that there doesn't seem to be, back in the population, there doesn't seem to be a statistical difference between the incomes in this survey between males and females. Now make sure that you identify the population. What is the population that we're dealing with? We've got a household survey that's been done of people who are 18 years and older and so on. You've done the information around this. You've got the background about the population. Use that as your population when you say. And what you say is, based on the things that I'm seeing about the box plots and the shifts and the medians and the interquartile ranges and so on, I'm seeing that there seems to be no statistical difference in the population of incomes between male and females. In the population, household survey population, there doesn't seem to be a statistical difference between male and females. And then we get into, well, what's the next level of things? The next level of things is talking about confidence intervals and why we use confidence intervals instead of a point estimate like an estimate of medians for the population and how that works. And so we'll talk about that next.